Hogwarts kitchens. Early morning. Harry groaned as he slowly came to. His head was pounding, and everything felt wrong. His body ached, his mouth was dry, and there was a sticky substance clinging to his face. He squinted, trying to make sense of his surroundings, blinking rapidly as the dim light of the early morning filtered through the enchanted kitchen windows. Next to him, Hermione was stirring, letting out a low groan as she rubbed her eyes. "Ugh, what happened?" she mumbled, her voice hoarse. Her head was throbbing, and her limbs felt heavy, as if she had run a marathon. Her hair was tangled, but more disturbingly, it was matted with jam. Harry sat up slowly, blinking in confusion. His entire body was covered in a fine layer of white flour, and his clothes were sticking to him, smeared with syrup and some other sticky substance. What is all this?" he muttered, looking down at himself in disbelief. "Why do I feel like I've been hit by a bludger, and why am I covered in flour?" Hermione, still groggy, sat up as well, grimacing as she realized something was wrong. She touched her face, her fingers coming away sticky. "Is this jam?" she asked in disbelief, staring at her hand. "Why am I covered in jam, Harry?" Her eyes widened as she looked around, noticing for the first time the absolute mess that surrounded them. Flour scattered across the floor, a pool of syrup congealing near the counter, and broken eggshells everywhere. Harry rubbed his temples, trying to piece together what had happened. His memory was fuzzy. He remembered being frustrated in charms class, and then nothing. "Hermione," he said slowly, "I don't remember much, but I'm pretty sure we came down to the kitchens to make pancakes." Harry said, a bit muddled. "Pancakes?" Hermione repeated, looking around at the flour and eggs. Did we cook something? What on earth were we doing?" She gingerly touched her hair, which was still tangled with bits of flour and jam. "And why does my head feel like it's splitting open?" Just then Dobby appeared with a soft pop, looking both relieved but still frazzled from last night's madness. "Harry Potter! Miss Hermione! You is back to normal!" Dobby cried, clapping his hands together in delight. His wide eyes scanned the mess, though he seemed more focused on the fact that they were no longer toddlers. Harry squinted at him. "Dobby, what happened? Why do I feel like I've been hit with 100 hexes? And why are we in the trenches?" Harry was still extremely groggy, confused and muddled. Dobby looked nervous but started to explain, wringing his hands as he spoke. Harry Potter and Miss Hermione were not themselves last night. They turned into little toddlers. They were playing and playing, making mess in the kitchen, not the trenches, but Dobby is hoping you both is being better soon, and any of the ways Dobby was trying to look after you, but he gestured helplessly to the chaotic clutter of mush, powder and sticky rubbish around them. "You were very busy making pancakes and snowstorms and riding mops." Hermione blinked in disbelief. "We were dogs?" she asked, her face scrunching in pure confusion. "How is that even possible?" Harry groaned and ran a hand through his flour-coated hair. "I wonder why I feel like I've been ran over with 5 elephants dipped in salt." He looked down at his syrup-covered robes and sighed. "So we spent the night making Malfoy breakdance, then made him chuck eggs and jam around like a deranged prisoner. Great, so great!" Dobby was shocked and very startled, quickly his ears flopping as he did. No, Dobby exclaimed. "His ye's not to be saying such things, Harry Potter. You is very messy right now, but Dobby is glad you is feeling just little bits of better now." Hermione remembered some things vaguely. "I used a fork as a hairbrush." She giggled, staring at her sticky hair with amusement. "We need to go back to the common room," Harry said sharply. His memories were clearer, but Hermione had already gotten there and had stood up. Harry grimaced as he slowly stood up, grimacing as he wobbled on his feet. "Well, at least we didn't burn the kitchens down." He winced as he stood fully up, his legs shaking. "But I feel like I've been thrown down a well or used as a basketball in a game." Hermione was swaying slightly, catching her balance on the cooking bench. Let's just get back to the common room, Dobby. Please, will you bring our food there after we've freshened up and feel less sticky? Please? Yes, of course, Miss Hermione. Dobby will clean up this mess. Then he will be getting your breakfast for the good Mr. Potter and Miss Hermione. He clapped his hands again, and the cleaning supplies sprang into action, magically cleaning the mess very thoroughly. I'm never going to live this down, am I? Harry grinned weakly. At least we got pancakes out of it. Ron would have loved all that food, Harry said, grinning as they walked back to the common room to get cleaned up and enjoy a good breakfast. Gryffindor Common Room. Mid-morning. Harry and Hermione were now freshly cleaned and satisfied from their fresh and delicious breakfast Dobby made them. Both of them were still feeling the after-effects of the bizarre night, limbs aching and their embarrassment that they felt from causing so much havoc in one night, and as toddlers. Ron was lounging on one of the sofas by the fire, flipping through a Quidditch magazine, but he immediately sat up when he saw the two of them walk in. "Blimey!" he exclaimed, looking them up and down with wide eyes. "What the bloody hell happened to you two yesterday? You just disappeared after Charms, and now you look like you've been dragged through a cauldron of vampire blood. You're both pale and tired. Where have you been?" Harry and Hermione exchanged a glance, unsure of where to even begin. "It's a long story," he muttered. Ron raised an eyebrow. "A long story? Mate, you missed dinner, you missed Quidditch practice, Fred and George are still making jokes about it, and now you both look like you've been up all night wrestling a mountain troll." He leaned in, eyes narrowed. "Come on, spill it. What happened after Charms?" Hermione winced, not quite ready to relive the details of the previous day. We had a bit of an incident," she said, vaguely, sitting down on the armchair next to Ron. "Something happened. In Charms, and we weren't exactly ourselves for the rest of the day." Ron looked more confused than ever. "What do you mean you weren't yourselves? You went crazy, shrinking to the size of bloody toddlers in Charms, just a bit frustrated with the spell. Next thing I know, you two legged it before class ended, and no one saw you after that." Harry sat down next to Hermione, rubbing his temples. "Yeah, well, turns out we, sort of, turned into toddlers." Ron's eyes widened, and he stared at Harry as if he'd just sprouted a second head. "Wait, what? Toddlers? Are you taking the mickey?" Hermione groaned, hiding her face in her hands. "No, Ron, it's true. We were actually toddlers. Like throwing tantrums, playing with Floor, running around like maniacs." Ron's mouth fell open in shock. You were toddlers?" He blinked, trying to process the image. "Harry, you and Hermione, were you, like, crawling around and—" Harry cut him off, his face flushing with embarrassment. "Yeah, Ron. We were crawling, throwing things, making a mess in the kitchens. Don't even get me started on the flour and jam situation." Ron let out a loud laugh, doubling over as he imagined his two best friends, usually so serious and composed, acting like toddlers. "You're kidding! You're telling me you were running around the kitchens, covered in flour and jam like a couple of 2-year-olds? He snorted, tears forming in the corners of his eyes from laughing so hard. "Merlin's beard! I'd have paid good galleons to see that." Hermione shot him a glare, her face still red from embarrassment. "It wasn't funny, Ron. We couldn't control ourselves. Poor Dobby had to look after us, and we destroyed half the kitchen." Ron wiped a tear from his eye, still chuckling. "Oh, I bet Dobby loved that. You two probably gave him the most exciting night of his life. You didn't try to ride a broom, did you?" Harry rolled his eyes, but even he couldn't help but crack a smile. "No, but I did try to ride a mop at one point." This sent Ron into another fit of laughter, practically falling off the sofa. "A mop? Oh, that's brilliant. Harry Potter, the boy who lived, riding a bloody mop around the kitchens. And Hermione—" He turned to her, still grinning. "Let me guess, you were trying to organize the pantry, yeah?" Hermione huffed, crossing her arms. "I was trying to make pancakes, actually. But as toddlers, that didn't go very well." Ron leaned back, shaking his head in disbelief. "So let me get this straight. You two turned into toddlers, trashed the kitchens, made flower mountains, and Dobby had to babysit you all night. You've got to admit that's bloody hilarious." Harry shrugged, still feeling the weight of exhaustion. "Yeah, it sounds funny now, but trust me, I feel tired now, but we did have fun. We were a mess." Ron grinned and patted Harry on the shoulder. "Mate, I've seen you go up against a basilisk and dementors, but I think this might be your greatest challenge yet, being a toddler." Hermione, despite herself, started to laugh. "It's definitely not something I ever want to experience again." Ron shook his head, still chuckling. "Well, at least you're back to normal now. Though I have to say I'm almost disappointed I missed seeing Toddler Harry and Toddler Hermione throwing food around. Maybe McGonagall took pictures." Harry groaned, standing up and stretching. "Let's just hope no one mentions this ever again. I don't want Fred and George getting wind of it." Ron smirked. "Too late for that, mate. You know those two. This is prime wind-up material." Hermione sighed, but even she had to smile. "Well, at least we learned one thing." "What's that?" Ron asked, raising an eyebrow. "Never tell anyone or I'll beat you to death with a feather," Harry said dryly, making them all laugh. Gryffindor Common Room. Harry, Ron and Hermione were still talking about the events of last night, and as the conversation continued, Harry noticed something strange about Ron. At first it was subtle. His voice seemed a little higher, his words a bit more drawn out. "So," Ron said, a grin still plastered on his face, "I reckon if you two could be turned into little tots, then who's to say it won't happen again? Maybe old Snape'll get turned into a lil baby. Can you imagine? Bloody hilarious." Hermione froze mid-laugh, glancing at Ron suspiciously. "Ron, are you feeling all right?" Ron waved her off, but his hand was looking smaller, his fingers chubbier, more like a child's. "Oh, I'm fine. Stop worrying so much, Hermione. Blimey, you always so serious." But his voice, it sounded almost like a child whining. Harry squinted, watching as Ron absent-mindedly scratched his nose, his movements becoming more awkward, his posture slouching as if he were sinking into the cushions. "Ron, mate," Harry started cautiously, "you don't seem, quite yourself." Ron frowned, looking genuinely confused. "What do you mean, I'm fine?" His voice cracked and his speech slurred a bit. "Anyway, I was just thinking how funny it'd be if Snape tried to make us do potions while we're little babies. Bloody stupid," he'd say. "Get in line, you brats." Hermione's eyes widened in horror as she saw Ron's feet dangling off the edge of the sofa, shrinking inside his shoes. "Harry, he's turning into a toddler," she whispered, her voice full of panic. "What are you two whispering about?" Ron asked, his words now laced with a thick toddlerish slur. His hands had grown tiny, his nose slightly upturned, and his face had softened into an adorable chubbiness. "Oi! Stop keeping secrets. That's bloody rude." Harry leapt to his feet. "Ron, you're shrinking. Oh no, it's happening again." Ron looked down at his own body, noticing for the first time that his legs weren't reaching the floor anymore. Why am I so small?" His voice was higher pitched now, the trademark Ron grumpiness still shining through. "Why the bloody hell am I little?" Hermione stood up, her hands shaking. Oh no, we've got to fix this. Harry, what are we going to do? We can't let Ron become a—" Before she could finish, Ron's clothes had become way too big for him. He slipped down into his oversized sweater, his head popping out of the collar, now no bigger than a toddler of 2 or 3 years old. His fiery red hair stuck up in all directions, his chubby little cheeks flushed with frustration. He wiggled free of the sweater and stood on the couch, now only a couple feet tall, scowling up at Harry and Hermione. "Why am I so little?" Ron wailed, his tiny fists clenching in frustration. "This is so bloody stupid." Harry and Hermione exchanged panicked looks. "Ron, you've turned into a toddler," Harry stammered, his voice frantic. "No kidding," Ron snapped back, stomping his tiny foot on the cushion. "Fix it, I don't want to be a baby." Hermione ran her hands through her hair, pacing back and forth. "This is bad, this is very bad. First us, now Ron. What if this is spreading? What if more people start turning into toddlers?" Ron, however, seemed far less concerned with the bigger picture. He was too busy yanking at his oversized trousers, which had bunched up around his little legs. "Ugh! Stupid pants! Stupid sweater!" he grumbled, using his tiny hands to try and shove the clothes off. "Get off me, you bloody things!" Harry bit his lip, crouching down to Ron's new height. Mate, calm down, we'll figure this out." But Ron was having none of it. He plopped down onto the floor, crossing his little arms and scowling at the two of them. "I don't want to calm down. This is bollocks. I'm not a baby." Hermione kneeled next to him, her voice soothing but filled with worry. "Ron, I know you're frustrated, but you have to stay calm. We'll, find Professor McGonagall, or Dumbledore, or—" "Don't care about McGonagall," Ron shouted, his temper flaring up in true toddler style. "I just want to be big again. This is dumb." Harry and Hermione exchanged another nervous glance. What were they going to do? Ron was now a full-fledged toddler, and it wasn't just his appearance. His attitude was transforming too. He was still Ron, but with all the temper and impatience of a 3-year-old. "Harry," Hermione said slowly, "we have to watch him. We can't just leave him like this. Who knows what kind of trouble he could get into?" As if to prove her point, Ron jumped up and ran over to the nearby coffee table, grabbing one of the goblets left behind from breakfast. He stuck his tiny hand inside, trying to grab the last bit of pumpkin juice, but his hand got stuck. "Stupid cup!" he growled, pulling at it. "Bloody stupid thing!" Harry rushed over, trying to help. "Okay, Ron, give me the cup." "No, it's mine!" Ron yelled, tugging the goblet harder and nearly toppling over. "Me do it!" Hermione knelt beside him, gently pulling the cup from his hand. "Ron, you have to let us help. You're not yourself right now." "Don't want to be helped," Ron pouted, stomping his foot again, and then, without warning, he grabbed a pillow from the couch and flung it across the room. "Take that, stupid thing!" Harry sighed, picking up the pillow and trying not to laugh at how fiercely toddler Ron was behaving. "Okay, this is going to be harder than I thought." "Harder?" Hermione muttered, glancing at Ron as he started tugging on the curtains, trying to yank them down. "This is impossible." Ron, meanwhile, had made his way over to a stack of books and was now trying to climb on top of them, muttering under his breath. I'm big, not bloody little." And Harry quickly grabbed him before he could knock the books over. "Right, Ron, you're going to hurt yourself if you keep that up." Ron wriggled in his arms, his tiny fists hitting Harry's chest. "Put me down. Me no need help." Hermione groaned. "Harry, we need to get him to McGonagall now before he causes more trouble, and before we end up with more toddlers running around Hogwarts." Harry, trying to keep a hold of squirming Ron, nodded. "Yeah, good plan. Let's just hope she knows how to fix this." As they rushed out of the common room, Hermione tried to stay calm, but deep down she was panicking. What if McGonagall didn't know how to fix it? What if Ron was stuck as a toddler forever? And what on earth had caused this in the first place? Ron, still flailing in Harry's arms, shouted over his shoulder, "Me want snack, me want broomstick, bloody get me broomstick." Harry sighed, adjusting his grip on Mini Ron and sighing. "This is going to be a long day."